Welcome back to LANFest, Best Coast Land, hosted by LANFest Sacramento and Emerald City Land. Up next is our Careers in Gaming panel. But first, I wanted to mention we are supporting Children's Miracle Network through UC Davis Children's Hospital and Seattle Children's Hospital this weekend. Our goal is $4,000 in donations. And if you'd like to donate, please go to donate.landfest.com or scroll down and hit the donate button if you are watching on Twitch. Here with me today for the Careers in Gaming panel is Marcus Kennedy and Bryn Pilney from Intel. Bryn Pilney is the Game Messaging and Content Marketing Manager at Intel. Bryn has been working at Intel for 8 years, primarily supporting the gaming segment across several product lines, including motherboards, SSDs, and CPUs. Bryn is currently on the Intel Global Marketing team focused on creating educational content, translating technical spec to end user benefit through a variety of tactics, including influencers and other digital content. Welcome, Bryn. Marcus Kennedy is a senior director for Intel in the Client Computing Group and general manager for the Gaming and Esports division, where he was responsible for driving and executing Intel's strategy to delight 1 billion gamers worldwide on Intel platforms. In a plus 20 years career, Marcus has held various roles across business strategy, engineering, operations management, and finance in segments including manufacturing, data center, cloud, and Internet of Things. Marcus received his BS in industrial engineering from Florida State and an MBA from Babson College. He loves sports, reading, teaching, video games, playing pool, and spending time with his wife and kids. Welcome, Marcus and Bryn. We are happy to have you.
Thanks for having us.
We have some topics and questions lined up already for the panelists already, but if someone in the chat or on Twitch has questions, please type them in and we'll try to get to all the questions asked. Our first topic today is career journey and path to gaming. Marcus, we'll start with you and then we'll bounce it back over to you, Bryn. Many people like gamers think that they have to be a professional gamer or streamer to be in the gaming industry. What was your career journey to where you are now? How did you get to where you are?
I have no idea. I kind of lucked up, I think. No, seriously. So, as you mentioned, I have an engineering degree, and I kind of took an interesting path, winding through corporate America, and engineering, finance, business roles, all this other stuff, before I got the job that I have today, in the gaming and esports segment here at Intel. But what I'd say is, beyond just always trying to get a little better over time in my career and trying to just learn and always try to get a little better and a little better, what really kind of brought me here was that the person who hired me into the job knew that on the side I also actually was a professional video game player, and I have a passion for video games and have for years and years and years and years. And he's an old friend of mine, and he knew my kind of extensive background in corporate America, and also knew of that love of mine. And so, I got an opportunity to take a stab at doing this job. I'd say that, to the first part of your question, the path that I took to get here, the very first time I think I've ever played in any kind of competitive video games was actually at a LANFest, where we were doing D&D, and I had built my own computer to go play Counter-Strike 1.4 in some gym somewhere in Florida, and so that was like the very first, I think, competitive engagement that I ever had, beyond just growing up in arcades and playing fighting games and that kind of stuff before any of that stuff. But I've been a big fan of games for a long, long time, and just kind of backward fell into the job that I have today.
Got it. That is very interesting. And it sounds like you just met the right people at the right time, and also had the drive and the educational background and the experience to get what you needed.
I think that's true, Dan. I think if anybody ever told you that they had their entire career mapped out ahead of time, you know that they're lying to your face, right? And so if somebody had told me back, when I was an engineer in engineering school, right, that there was a job that existed where you could be a general manager of a gaming group, I would have targeted it, right? Like that would have been the thing I wanted to go do. I had no idea that something like this existed, and so for me, continuing to kind of grow and figure out the right skill set you needed to keep adding value in a career, however you want to do it, and keep learning, was part of that. But always kind of keeping an eye on where your passion really is, and if you get the opportunity to actually go kind of merge those two things together, your passion and your skill sets, then go do it, because I gotta tell you, this is by far my favorite job that I've ever had. So I'm having a ball right now.
That is amazing. How about you, Bryn?
Well, I will echo Marcus, skip to the end, and say this is also the best job I've ever had. So, maybe like if you, before I go into like my history, if you have aspirations of working in gaming, I think it's worth working towards. But like Marcus, serendipity for me, so I've always played games. I've been building computers since middle school. My brother is like 2.5, 3 years older than I am. So he got into it. He was also playing Counter-Strike competitively in high school. And, naturally being the younger brother, I was like, okay, I gotta, kick my brother's butt a little bit here, right? So we actually were on like the same teams and stuff, and we played Cal and ESEA and all that stuff growing up. So like, I've got an account with a fake birthday somewhere that's like 20 years old. Don't do that, right? Parental consent. But funny enough, I actually my first gaming job was not a glamorous one. I worked at a console LAN center in high school. This was like right when the Wii, the Xbox 360, and the PS3 came out. And I'll tell you what, it was not great cleaning up after like a bunch of like kids, but it came with free game time. So I was in. That didn't last forever though. Like I ended up going to school at Oregon State, and I still played games casually, but I had aspirations of working in the gaming industry. It was nothing like it is now, right? There's a lot more opportunities. So if people are looking for, what is the light at the end of the tunnel, there's a lot more jobs in gaming now than there were when I was going through school. But I kind of gave up on it, right? Because there wasn't a whole lot there in terms of opportunity. And I didn't have aspirations of being a game developer. I also had no idea what I wanted to do, but I pursued a business degree at Oregon State because I knew that regardless of what field I worked in, that was going to have some value. And so I ended up getting into a pretty good internship program, which I recommend to anybody who's going to school. Even if it's not in gaming, having career experience in school will put you way ahead of other people when you come out of school. And the thing about a growing gaming industry is the skill set that you build or the jobs that you get don't necessarily have to be in gaming to help you land a gaming job later. Because the first one I got was doing project management in healthcare in like a small hospital system through the middle belt of Oregon. Man, that was terrible. I did that for like 9 months, and I was like, I know what I don't want to do, which is another reason you should go do internships, because the healthcare industry was not for me. It was like right as everything was becoming government mandated for electronic medical records. And so here I am, like, a 19-year-old kid going in telling doctors that like they have to put down the pen and paper and use a keyboard. They were not happy about it. So I got out of that, and then I actually I was going to study abroad because I was going into my senior year. But this internship program that I had basically had relationships with a bunch of Pacific Northwest companies, and I was going to miss the interview for the second internship because it was like this entire process. And I emailed them. I said, I really want to study abroad, which I also recommend. I did semester at sea. It was amazing. Different conversation. But it wasn't worth studying abroad to miss my second internship. And so I emailed them, and they said, don't tell anybody. So here I am on Twitch telling you guys. But they sent me a list of all the companies and they said, if you could work for any company on this list, who would you want to work for? And we will send them your resume 24 hours before we send it to everybody else. And Intel was on that list. So as somebody who had been building computers for, close to, I don't know, probably 7 or 8 years at that point, and still gaming in my free time, easy choice. And I ended up talking to people that were in, at the time, the motherboard division. We, don't make motherboards anymore, but it is the same team that now makes the NUC, if you guys are familiar with the NUC. In fact, I was on the phone because as I was studying abroad, my dad sent me an Oregonian email that's like, Intel moving out of motherboards. And I was like, oh no. And I got on the call. I got on Skype. It was like 2:00 in the morning for me. And I'm like, do I still have an internship? They're like, what do you know about NUC? And at this time, NUC had cumulatively sold, I think, like 2,500 units. So you could go down the hall at Intel when I started and ask somebody if they knew what a NUC was. And they'd be like, a who? Is that a bad word? And so anyway, that's like a long preamble. At Intel, though, I was doing project management for kind of generic motherboard stuff. And the advice that I have is, especially if you end up at a bigger company, seek out the jobs that you want. You have to be your biggest advocate. Like, don't get me wrong. I have some mentors, I'm going to name drop him because, he actually was the person that helped me get my foot in the door supporting gaming at Intel, Justin Whitney. Like, we became super close and he helped me get my first job. But it's also because in my free time as an intern, when I was done with all of my work, I would go to Justin and I would say, Justin, you're working on SSDs and gaming. And this is like right during the first wave of SSDs, being like $3 a gigabyte. And, you're like half of a paycheck for 120 gig, like game drive. You've got Windows and, like, for me, Counter-Strike and WoW. But yeah, no. And he eventually invited me as an intern to go to a PAX where I met one of my later managers, Mark Chang, who actually gave me the job that I'm in now. And you just got to put yourself out there, right? I didn't have any special skills. I was like a novice at like the Adobe suite, and I was hitting YouTube and making side-by-side SSD comparison videos for Justin in the lab. Nothing to do with my education, just absolutely nothing. But he was working in gaming and I wanted to do that. So the other thing is flexibility. Like, I've moved for work, started in Oregon, moved to Folsom to be a product line manager and do strategic planning for SSDs. So like our first round of PCIe NVMe SSDs for the consumer market, like 750 series. I helped bring that to market. And it's really rewarding, right? Like, working on a product, bringing it to market, educating people about why they need it. I don't know. I wouldn't change it for anything. And a lot of the strategy that I did wasn't in the product side of things. I also am doing now in like a more strictly marketing role. It's just, taking a step back from actually owning all the product decisions and really focusing on how do I help people understand why this will make what they do better. So I think flexibility, being your own advocate, understanding that, like, even if it's not gaming specific, it can still help you get there, are all incredibly important.
Can I piggyback on something you just said there towards the end? You talked also about, Bren, taking the opportunities that are kind of there to kind of lean into your passion, even if it's not your day job. And I alluded to the fact that the person, that my current boss, kind of picked up the phone and was like, hey, there's an opportunity here. Are you interested in throwing your name in the hat relative to gaming? I alluded to the fact that he knew that I was into gaming. Well, the reason he knew I was into gaming is because pretty much since I got here, I took every opportunity I could to bring gaming along with me. So I used to be in our manufacturing facilities on the night shifts, and I would run kind of on the side video game tournaments here inside on night shift and on the manufacturing, like not on the floor, but like right outside in the cafeteria. We played like rock band competitions and all these other things. Big factory team-based Wii tournaments for Wii tennis back then. Fast forward, as I kept doing that, the plant manager sent me to PAX because they needed somebody for PAX East, and this was in Massachusetts. And he was like, "Hey, Marcus, you seem to like video games. Do you want to go?" Of course I do. And so I went to PAX East and staffed the booth, right? And then helped with marketing, made a few contacts there. Fast forward again, when we needed to actually do a couple of marketing things relative to gaming, two of the folks knew that I had done that, picked up the phone and called me. So all of that got word back to the guy who I'm talking about, who knew that not only did I like gaming, but I was actively trying to, kind of lean into the passion. All about, finding opportunities to do things to match your passion that may not be your day job once you have your foot in the door.
Absolutely. And what you guys are talking about is using the skills from other jobs as you go along that applies to gaming, and using your own, advocating for yourself, taking risks, putting yourself out there, not being afraid to make shifts and changes and go for things. One follow-up question: how do you guys do that? How in your career path have you kind of that voice that we all carry, that critical voice that we all have in our head that says, "No, you can't do that." No, how did you kind of push that down and just say, "Hey, yeah, I could go do this," and have the confidence and the to trust yourself to do good work, and to trust your intuition, where some people, they think that mountain is too high for them to climb to get into a job where it's full of passion and full of what they like to do. How did you guys do that? If you don't mind me asking, that's a very personal question.
For me, I would say I was kind of looking at the end goal first, right? What did I want to do? And then working backwards to what did I need to do to get there, right? And if I knew what I wanted to do, which was I wanted to make myself, actually one of the best pieces of career advice I've ever gotten was make yourself invaluable to the people around you, to the point where nobody can even think about what it would be like to replace you. And so part of making myself invaluable was a lot of times doing the jobs nobody else wanted to do. Like, am I going to say I never had that voice in my head? Don't go look for like a presentation at QuakeCon 2015 where like I went on stage in front of like 1,500 people to talk to them about SSDs because I nearly crapped myself. It really was, how do I get to QuakeCon, right? How do I get to one of the biggest LANs in the United States? You're the dude on stage. Nobody else wants to be the dude, right?
Absolutely.
And I was like, I said yes, and then I like regretted it for several months, but I did it, right?
Absolutely.
And I guess what I would say is, maybe it's encouraging for some of you, like, this stuff becomes easier the more you do it.
Absolutely.
And so 2015, that I was still like very green. I've now done a bunch of those, like TwitchCon and E3 and other stuff. And I'm not going to say that it, doesn't get me a little bit nervous, but it's not debilitating. So like the second that you are successful, it's self-enforcing.
I'd say a couple other things. So first, I was never that strategic, starting with the end goal in mind and working backwards. I go the other way, and say, some other advice that I got once, which is if you find yourself being really nervous about something, that's how you know you should be doing it, because it's where that growth, it's there, that's where that growth is going to happen, right? And so, Dan, you used the analogy of climbing a mountain, right? And the only way you know if you can climb the mountain is by trying to climb it, right? You're not going to know without trying. And so So instead of, saying, hey, I want to climb that mountain, right? Or which mountain am I going to climb? And then going and figuring out, I'm the one who will be like, hey, I think I'm going to go try to climb a mountain today to see how far I can go. And I just go give it a shot,
Absolutely.
and then fail, learn from that, and then try again, and get a little higher the next time, and get a little higher the next time until you scale it. And then go try a different mountain and try it again, and try a different one. So for me, it's about giving it a shot. And, you talked about that voice. The voice never goes away, not
Yeah.
for me. And as I talk to lots of other people in the industry, successful, not successful, whatever, many people, I think everybody gets a little nervous. So to expect that voice ever goes away, or to expect that you'll ever be
Absolutely.
100% sure that you'll go do something,
Absolutely.
I don't think that's a realistic expectation. You just got to go. You still got to go push yourself, and still got to go try it. That's how you grow.
Absolutely. And that I'm sure throughout your, we're talking about advice for people that want to get into the gaming industry. I bet both of you would agree that sometimes you got to make mistakes to learn, and that's
Oh, that's
okay.
absolutely.
Or to go, hey, I don't have all the answers, and can I ask somebody that knows for help? Like
Yeah.
you both talked about having mentors and people to go talk to and say, how did you do it? So I could learn from how you do it, whether or not it works, because you both have two different approaches to it, but both got to the same place.
Yeah.
And that's, it's each individual is different, is finding what works for you. And, I heard a quote one time that if you fall down, make sure you fall on your back, because if you could look up, you can get up. And I always like that analogy, that sometimes mistakes are going to happen, but you could always come up from it and learn from it and keep going on. And that's just very inspiring, and it's refreshing, because I do some in my personal life. There's a large majority of the United States in the workforce that are just unhappy with their job, and it's so refreshing to be around people that are passionate about what they do, like what they do. I make no illusions of utopian. I know there's no utopia and a perfect job out there, but it's so nice to be around people. You could feel the energy when people are passionate and love what they do, and even if it's not perfect, you could see it on them, you could feel it on them, and it's well needed in our country, in our communities, just to bring more people together and have and to think more positively than maybe negatively, which is challenging.
That's so right, Dan. And you mentioned that you got to be not afraid to make mistakes. I'd say it's even go one step further and say just accept that you're going to make mistakes. Nobody's perfect, right? Nobody's perfect. You're going to make mistakes, so you might as well learn from them, right? As opposed to being afraid to make them. Because if you're just afraid to make mistakes, you'll never get out your front door, right? So you got to get out there. You got to be willing to try, and you got to be focused on learning from those mistakes when you make them, and learn from your successes too. Because
absolutely. Absolutely. The successes are sometimes just as important as the mistakes. That is just fantastic. I'm going to move to our second topic, and that's inclusivity in gaming. Everybody is a gamer in some respect, whether they are in the CSGO Masters or playing Candy Crush on their phone. Traditionally, there are specific stereotypes in what the gaming community looks like. Do you think we're heading in the right direction concerning inclusivity across all stereotypes and demographics? Do you think we're uniting in the gaming community, or do you think we still have some areas that we still need to improve on? We're talking about inclusivity and stereotypes in the demographics, with the gaming spreading out to more communities and more diversity, from young people to old people of all walks of life. What do you guys think about inclusivity?
Can I say yes to both? That
Absolutely.
yes, I think we're moving in the right direction, and yes, there are still pockets of places that definitely need help. So first, I think we all know the stereotypes. I mentioned that one of my first competitive experiences was a LANFest. You probably know what that looked like, and you probably know what it smelled like, and you can probably guess, the gender makeup and all of those things there, right?
Yep.
You can probably guess it, and you would not be wrong, right?
Yep.
Because of when it was, and what the gaming environment and the culture looked like back then. It is very different now.
Absolutely.
when you say gaming, even today, it's not even a bad word. When you say esports tournaments, I mean,
Exactly.
esports as a term wasn't even a thing back then, right? When you talked about playing video games, people thought about, sweaty teenage boys in basements, which is exactly what I was, right? And so,
Exactly.
and now, 500 million people stream esports a year, right? Just stream, just
Absolutely.
watching it. Not even talking about who's
Absolutely.
playing it, but just watching esports, being interested in video games, right? There's 1.5 billion gamers that game on PCs out there today.
Wow.
There's an extra billion if you add on consoles and
Absolutely.
mobile phones. So 2.5 billion people are playing games, and 45-ish% of them are women now.
Yep.
So you can't. It's no longer right. Games are no longer
Absolutely.
just teenage sweaty boys playing in a
Absolutely.
basement, right? It's everybody everywhere at this point, right?
Absolutely.
My stepmom plays solitaire, so she's a gamer. She probably wouldn't call herself a gamer, but she's a gamer. My dad plays Candy Crush. You mentioned it.
Yeah.
My two young girls play games all the time. They just do it while
Absolutely.
they're watching videos on their iPads, right?
Absolutely.
Way better at multitasking than I am. Now to the point about the fighting of stereotypes and the inclusivity. I do think that there are still places where when you go and play games, even if you're within that 2.5 billion people that I'm talking about, that you really only still play with the people around you, that you play within a certain social group, or that you've probably experienced when you go and play outside of that social group or people that you play with normally, that there are people who might not be as accepting or tolerant of other people, or using language that isn't really appropriate. And I think part of that is because video games offer a sense of anonymity that maybe hides some of that, and it enables some folks who to test out certain parts of their personality that maybe they don't want to use elsewhere. What I've found is in-person gaming communities have none of that. That you don't get that. It's about as inclusive as a community as it can be. Even when it was just teenage boys and sweaty boys in a basement, when a girl did show up, they were welcomed, right?
Absolutely.
When you got
Absolutely.
online, it might be a little different story, but they're socially. And so I think that as the environment grows and grows, and the social environment grows and grows, that I do think that more and more people will be playing. And frankly, games, I think, are just a medium that drives inclusivity more probably
Absolutely.
than most other, especially like esports, most other sports, right? You can play competitive video games no matter whether you can walk or whether you can, no matter if you're
Absolutely.
blind or not, if you're deaf or not, if you have one hand or no hands. There are competitive video game players out there with no hands. There's literally a guy whose name's No Hands, right? And
Absolutely.
and it's amazing that that there's to me it just opens it up so much. And I think that we're moving in a place where we're being more tolerant of not just different abilities but also different cultures and genders. And I think we just have to be
Absolutely.
as we go. We got ways to go, but I do think that we're moving in the right direction.
I got a short adder here because Marcus, I think you covered it more completely than I could have. Even as we're using LANFest as a platform here to talk about it, but I've been going to LANs since I first started building computers, and even the fabric of LANs has changed since I started going to LANs. And one thing I will say is, number one, LANs are amazing because that in-person element is
Absolutely.
awesome. But one thing I've noticed in going to LANs for over a decade at this point is online is part of the fabric of all gaming now,
Yep.
right? Are there offline games? Sure. But I can guarantee for the type of gaming that everybody here is doing, online, even at a LAN, is a incredibly big part of it. And I'm just going to
Absolutely.
double click on one of the things Marcus was talking about, where it's like when you're playing with other people and anonymity online. I got a short message for people. We got to be nicer to each other. And even outside the scope of this question, one thing that has helped me learn from mistakes or successes in the past is a little bit of introspection. And I think I played competitive games as a young teenager. I didn't say the nicest things online, right? But I've grown up a little bit. I'd like to think I've matured a little bit. I think if I was going to go back and talk to me like high school version of me, I'd be like, why, dude?
Yeah.
Like, what do you have to gain? What reason are you lashing out at these random people online? Because there's the gaming we see, and there's a lot more diversity than we see. But in large part, it's because we've created some environments that, like, if you're not part of the big part of the demographic, why would you want to get on your mic? Why would you actively seek out harassment? And in order for us to move forward, we just got to be nicer to each other. We really do.
Can I just make one small add to that, because I love that, Bryn. I don't, one thing that I don't know that maybe younger Bryn would have recognized, right? That maybe Bryn today does, is the impact that that lack of kindness, right? That lack of niceness has on the people around you. And the studies show, and we've done a number of research and commissioned studies and done research ourselves, show that people just self-deselect. People, there are folks who, when you encounter that, just decide that they don't want to do it anymore. Either they don't want to play games online anymore, or maybe they just won't play games at all because of the experience that they have. And I'd say, I don't think any of us want that. I don't think anybody wants people to kind of back out of this culture and this thing that we love so much in playing games because of something somebody said. And so because of something worse, because of something you said, or maybe because of something you heard and didn't speak up and address when you heard it. And so if we can just be nice to each other and support each other in those spaces, then we can help each other kind of get through that.
Absolutely. And that goes a long way. To build somebody up or to encourage somebody is sometimes easier or more beneficial than tearing somebody down over a video game or I get, and I also get in some fun banter between people. That is welcome across the board, because you're playing with your friends and you need to have a good time and pick on people a little bit. But you guys are hitting right on one of the core values for LANFest, is that in anybody that comes in, we want them to feel welcome, feel safe, feel supported in whatever game they want to do. And I'm kind of an old World of Warcraft guy, to where I was a guild master and all of the raid leader. And there was something really special about having 25 people of various demographics go in and complete something, or a raid, or kill a boss for the first time. It was one of the most enjoyable experiences to lead or to be a part of, and see that in that world that all the girls didn't have to be healers. One of our main tanks was a female, and she was one of the best tanks I've ever seen in that particular game. And it was so neat to hear her barking orders and taking charge and just being who she was. And it was just a welcome. And I think, to your point, that we need more of that in our society, and gaming should be that outlet to where we can kind of drop the media and the news and all the horrificness in the world and sit down and enjoy ourselves. And get together with friends, family, or community people, or people you don't even know, and get to know somebody and have a good time doing it. You just never know who you're going to meet and what inspiring thing you're going to, in the world of gaming, across nations, across states. It breaks down a lot of barriers comparatively, which I find is just a very, it's very satisfying, and it brings hope for me that it's going to be all right. If we could get together and have a good time, things are going to work out. If we could just keep the conversation going, and that, it brings up some of the challenging that the gaming industry has, is that bullying, the competitiveness, which is good, but also kind of has a little bit of that dark side that we could all kind of try to learn from. And maybe we'll get frustrated, but we don't attack a person for whatever's going, within reason, for any reason. That is just fantastic. What have you guys seen with the pandemic? I know we're trying to get back in the next few months to live LANs, in person or hybrid, part online, part live. But what have you guys seen when it comes to the pandemic and everything kind of being shut down? Do you think that has impacted the gaming industry in a positive way, or do you think it's both sides, and at Intel as well?
Bryn, you want to start?
I can give my personal take. I think there's a lot of ways I could take this question as a fellow raid leader. Actually, I raid lead right now for WoW Classic.
Awesome.
People in coffee, you know who you are. Which is 40 people. And I'll tell you what, at the beginning of the pandemic, I was getting like back-to-back months of 100% attendance, which never happens. So like that made my life a little bit easier. But like on a more serious note, gaming helped me a ton during the early part of the pandemic. Like, I'm a bit of an introvert, even though I am willing to do things like this. It still is, a little bit abnormal for me, but I've had like a really close knit group of both online and in-person friends that I was able to get some of that social connection, that community that I feel like a lot of some of my friends who aren't gamers really struggled with during the early part of the pandemic, because this has always been kind of an extension of my, I don't know, social circle. And so I will just say, I kind of found some support here. I know that's probably not where you were thinking of when the question was asked, but it helped me at least.
Got it.
Well, I'll actually take that and expand it. So what Bryn just shared is exactly what we've seen globally, that gaming helped people. It helped be an outlet. It helped be that place where you could go to socialize when you couldn't actually go see people. You had a place to connect and a place to engage, take your mind off whatever was going on. And it became the thing that you were able to do when you couldn't do anything else. And because of that, we ended up seeing this explosion of, just from a business perspective, an explosion of sales.
Yeah.
We've seen global numbers that have been unlike anything we've ever seen in terms of sales of PCs and sales of gaming equipment, components, everything. It's just skyrocketing. Streaming saw records on, whether you're talking streams of things like this, of Twitch and stuff like this, or whether you're talking actual streams of gameplay, it was skyrocketing everywhere. Esports tournaments that moved virtual had the highest record attendance that they've had, and highest record viewership that they've ever had. So I would say 2020 was actually it was bad for a lot of reasons, right? And we've all still dealing with repercussions from it. But from a gaming industry perspective, I think games themselves were there for us when we needed them, and the sales kind of boosted from that. And on the opposite end of that, right, that skyrocketing growth actually has now led to this global chip shortage. So now, so we're dealing with some of the repercussions right now, and we'll get through that just like we've gotten through everything, and we'll get through it together like we've gotten through everything. From a personal perspective, beyond just the business point of view, like Bryn, I'm not a raid leader, but I do participate in them, and I use games as a way to continue to connect. My brother, who's across the country, we get on Grand Theft, or we'll play Rocket League together, or we'll play Smash Brothers, which was the other game I was competitive on, and so I still get a chance to play even though I can't see them, and it's a way for both of us to stay connected, and even when, for people inside the house, it was a way for us to kind of work together. So I built a computer with my oldest daughter. She's 11, so she now has a gaming computer. That was part of what we did during the pandemic, and we started playing as a family a variety of games as well. So I think that games actually saw benefit and provided a benefit during the pandemic.
Total. So agree with you on that. I think it did exactly those things. And for for Intel, you hit it right on. For business side of the house, things are that's a nice problem to have. Those are nice.
It was a good time for me to be in this job, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, no, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. What is something you guys are incredibly proud of about working for Intel, or your personal lives, or anything? What is something that you guys are just really proud of that you've accomplished?
Well, So I'll start on this one. I always find, so part of the reason that I continue to work at a large company like Intel is because I always kind of index on impact. I want to have the largest impact I possibly could in as short a time as I have on this earth, right? And for me, Intel has been a great place for me to continue to grow and learn from a career perspective, but also they've been extremely, as a company, it really kind of gets behind its employees and things that we want to do too, whether that's community service and then matching the time that we spend with dollars in the community, or when you're in a position of influence to make decisions on what we go do, we don't really have to do a whole lot of explaining on doing something for a community. And so one of my favorite things that we've done recently is launch something that we call Intel Inspires. It's this esports tournament that we've done in partnership with CDW and MSI last year in November. Think of it like an NFL Combine meets esports, with the idea being that high school students and first or second year college students come in and seek scholarships by competing in a tournament, and then we bring the schools in to kind of look at the talent and then choose who they're going to offer the scholarship. So we're kind of pairing them together. And the reason why this is such a great thing and why I'm proud of it is because when we did those scholarships, I mean, you when you're at a company like this and you choose to do something like that, you kind of know that, hey, we're doing this because we want to have an impact with the community. And yeah, there's business too, but the reason you
Yeah,
do this is because it's going to
absolutely.
change people's lives. And
Absolutely.
we had the students submit videos as part of their application for the scholarships. And when I tell you that some of those videos, like, were seriously, like, literally tearjerkers, and I use that term
Absolutely.
literally, like literal tearjerkers. Um,
Yeah.
some of those students who won, I mean, it quite literally changed their lives to be able to leverage this sport or this hobby that they have to be able to afford the ability to go to college, so that their parents don't have to pay, their parent doesn't have to have that second job or have to worry about what they're doing. Like, that kind of stuff, being able to do that in this privileged position that we're in, to work at a company like Intel, to me, that's the kind of stuff that really matters. At the end of the day, I'm not going to remember that, we helped Intel, sell a few million more units, right? Like, that's
Yeah.
great, and I appreciate that. That's what I'm held accountable to, and I got to go do that job. But what I'm going to remember once I'm done doing this are things like that, right? That's what's going to stick with me, because that's, to me, what's like really critically important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What about you, Bryn?
Yeah, I'll hit it from two different angles. I'll hit it from a couple of projects that I thought, like, that I found a lot of fulfillment in doing it in, and then I'll hit one kind of like Marcus in terms of like the bigger picture, right? Um, I already talked about one of them, like bringing NVMe to market as like the first ever consumer drive, and being the person who did like the strategic planning on like our enthusiast SSD line and stuff. That was incredibly rewarding for me, in part because I always say, like, I'm business by education, but technical by hobby.
Sure.
And so, talk about making yourself invaluable, kind of sitting in between those worlds and being able to do like a technical strategy role was a constant learning experience for me. And being able to actually accomplish that, like, was very fulfilling for me. And then more recently in my marketing role, we worked with Dr. Lupo to solve a problem that we'd been talking with him for, over a year before we actually decided to do it. He needed a like streaming solution that basically felt like his home setup, that like could get deployed very, very quickly. And so we actually worked with um, an industrial design firm to build him kind of like a one for one custom streaming solution that nobody has ever seen before, that meets, and he's
Wow.
like very demanding of his hardware. So because he used to be like an IT professional in his past. So
Oh,
the first time I met him, he was like giving me, he was like testing my hardware knowledge. I'm like, shit. But that, like, those are cooler projects that I've been able to work on. In terms of like bigger vision though, this is going to sound like, a little cheesy,
Yeah.
but I tell people internally all the time that I am a gamer first and a Intel employee second. And I actually see my job at Intel as somebody who's supporting the gaming industry as making sure that they understand the ramifications of some of the decisions that we make for end users. And I don't know, I like maybe some of this is self-serving because like, you know, I'm part of a bunch of like online hardware communities and stuff like that. And like if you go through the comments, you would think that we're all monsters. I just want to tell you guys, like, give us the benefit of the doubt sometimes, because I really am trying. Like, if it makes me feel icky, I'm not going to do it. Right. At the end of the day, we're advocating for you internally because we're a huge company. Right. TLDR, not all marketers are evil. I love you guys. Please. think of me before you comment.
And if I could add a little to that from a business side, you know, we do listen to the community, and you know, Bryn mentioned that it's a really big company, over 100,000 people. It's hard to get a group of people on like a raid to do what you want them to do. Imagine how hard it is to get to move a company that's 100,000+ people that generates, you know, $70+ billion of revenue a year to do something differently. What I'd say is that, you know, yes, we're advocating for you. We're listening to the community, and part of what I'm proud of is actually taking that feedback we get from you all, what we hear, and actually changing our products. You know, we launched Rocket Lake recently, and there were a few things in Rocket Lake that we did that came directly from the gaming community that I helped get over the hump because you all told us what we needed, right? And that's the kind of stuff, like being able to change the technology, being able to bring really cool technology to the world to actually change the way you all experience the games that you love so much. That's a really cool thing that I'm always proud to get to go do. And so being able to, you know, actually make a difference in a way that resonates with you all because you tell us what you need, keep doing that, keep telling us, and you know, people like Bryn and I will continue being proud to bring that to bear.
That's awesome. And I love that about the gaming industry and about Intel. LANFest is the same way, where we listen to our customers, we listen to the people outside and make adjustments as needed. I get it. In a company that size, it's hard to redirect a big ship sometimes, but it's really nice that you guys, part of the organization is to listen to customers and take that feedback. And then, like you said, to be able to operationalize that feedback into improvements for the community and have that two-way communication going is very impactful. And it's so nice to see that you guys are proud of the work that you do, proud of what you have accomplished, and what's coming next is exciting as well, I bet. And coming down in the next few years, what is the gaming industry going to look like in 5, 10, 20 years? It should be absolutely incredible to see what's coming next with that technology and with the community and the numbers that are out there of people gaming. It should be extremely exciting to see what is coming up next. We're going to go to our last topic, and that's about the games themselves. So LANFest is a healthy gaming community welcoming anybody and everybody that is interested in gaming, tabletop, console, PCs, etc. The most important question you will ever be asked when you go to a LANFest event is, what is your favorite game currently? Bryn, I'll put you on the spot first. What is your favorite game current?
Can I like do the thing that you're not supposed to do and say I have two?
Of course, of course. 50% either side. I'll allow it.
I mean, honestly, they're like, I play a little bit of everything, which is like the total cop-out answer, right? And then,
but it's a real gamer answer. It's a real gamer answer.
And then, well, especially when I'm landing, right? That's when we get into the really obscure stuff. But I've had two games that I've played for over a decade: World of Warcraft and Counter-Strike. and it scratches a lot of the same itches for me. And then like one of my best friends actually left Nike to go work for Riot on Valorant. So I have been playing a lot of Valorant. I got Immortal last week. I still got it. I still got it. You know, I'm about to turn 30. So like, that's, you know, I'm a boomer in gamer years, but like, hey, I still got a little bit of that in me. So WoW Classic specifically.
Oh yes.
So I'm excited for TBC coming up, and then Valorant for sure. That's where I spend the majority of my time these days.
How about you, Marcus? I know you might have two or three too with a family and children, and you might have a whole plethora, but can you narrow it down to one or two current?
Well, Bryn got three. So I won't say Valorant. I won't say Valorant. Though by saying it, I'm not saying it. One time for Phoenix players out there. I grew up playing fighting games, and you know, besides Counter-Strike, my heart, where I was competitively, and even now how I play with my friends and family and play with my girls, is Smash Brothers, right? So we probably spend more time playing Smash Brothers than any other game. So you know, from Melee, not even from Melee, but from the original all the way up through the current, right? So that's probably the number one game, because it's just I've been playing it for, you said over a decade. Yeah, for me, Smash Brothers, 20 years now.
Wow. Yeah, but Melee's still the best.
Oh, Melee's
right?
still the best. It's absolutely still the best. Still the best. I mean, once you learn how to wave dash, it just opens everything else up for you, and then you could actually try to go be competitive. But that's really what changed my life, was figuring that out, and then actually going to tournaments to get my butt whooped, and then getting better before I could actually be an MLG. But so that's number one. I would say my number two, though, I'll go a different tact, is I'm getting nostalgic, right? Because I'm older than Bryn by a bit. I'm not going to age myself, but it means I go back and I play games I loved, but with remastered versions or remade versions. And so RPGs, right, are like my other love besides first-person shooters and fighting games. That's my third. Depending on the day, it switches. And the Final Fantasy series, really the Square Enix overall, because Chrono Trigger is like my top favorite game, but the Final Fantasy series overall. And so like the Final Fantasy VII remake is one that I've been playing. I can't wait to play the Yuffie episode once I get my hands on it. And then I'm replaying 10 right now, or X right now on the PlayStation, and I went back on my Switch and played 6 a while back. So like I probably spend more time, if it's not playing a fighting game with my family or with my friends, then I'm probably on an RPG, unless it's Rocket League, which I mentioned earlier with my brother, which I love.
Got it.
So that was three, right? Three.
Yep, that's 3 each. So this is one of my favorite questions about gaming. About games. What is your all-time favorite game you played, but that you absolutely hated, but you couldn't walk away from, or it had aspects of it that were very frustrating, but you still played it? One of those games that was the one boss that was just unbelievably hard to find.
That's easy. This is easy. The first Ninja Gaiden on Nintendo. Yeah. Oh my God. It was so hard. that was the very first game, and there was these eagles that when you jump, it would hit you when you try to knock you out and you die. Like the timing of that game, that game probably more than anything rested in my soul. It got me prepared. Speaking of souls, it got me prepared to play Dark Souls and Bloodborne, because I knew what pain was, because I grew up playing the original Ninja Gaiden back then.
Absolutely.
That's probably the number one that I loved and played and ultimately beat. By the way, it just took me forever, but ultimately beat that. Man, I hated picking up this controller for that game.
How about you, Bryn?
I tend to be a more social gamer. Like I I think like the last single player game I actually made it all the way through was probably Ocarina of Time. And so like from a difficulty perspective, I've got
Solid game though.
well, I mean, one of the best, right?
Solid game.
But like the real answer for like which game is the largest salt mine for me has to be Counter-Strike. Like there are some like heated moments between my brother and I. But I'll give a different answer just because it's like didn't want to give it up, had to give it up because like it really got no support was Tribes Ascend. Tribes is like amazing game, and you know, like it's now just like a corpse. All of the support went to Smite, and like I'm not a MOBA player, even like, you know, different perspective. Sorry, League of Legends players, Dota players. Not that sorry.
Oh, that's great. Well, we have about 5 minutes left. 5 minutes left, but I do want to, and I thank you guys so much for being here and being so open with your time and your perspective on things. I do want to capture, again, going back a little bit to what, you know, can you guys summarize in a minute or two each on what you would say to a group of young people or old people or any type of people that want to get into the gaming industry? What kind of final thoughts would you give somebody that's interested? Across anything that you've said, you could repeat things that you said or anything else that comes up for you that you would want to leave the folks that are watching on the stream and those that are going to watch it after the fact via YouTube and things like that, that you would want people to know. Whichever one of you guys wants to go first is fine.
Yeah, I'll hit something that I didn't really talk about, and I don't know, maybe this becomes more true over time as like the gaming industry evolves, but like I don't necessarily think that traditional work experience is the only way to advance yourself and build the skills necessary to be successful in a job. Like I interview for work for people that are looking to, you know, get a gaming job at Intel. And I will tell you, as somebody who raid leads, if somebody told me that they like obviously like gauge your audience first before you do something like this, right? But if somebody told me that they raid lead, I would take that incredibly seriously because there's a level of interpersonal skills and people management there that's like no joke. So like not necessarily tactically in your next interview be like, yeah, I'm like 5 seasons of Gladiator. Like that might not mean something to everyone, but looking at those as opportunities to build skill sets that can benefit you elsewhere, totally.
Got it.
Yeah, I would say first to expand on what Bryn said, there are lots of jobs and lots of ways to get to where you want to get to, right? Don't assume that you've got to do one thing to get there, and don't assume that whatever degree you go and get, or whether you have a degree or not, is what you're going to do for the rest of your life. You know, you can get a marketing degree and never end up marketing. I have an engineering degree. I haven't done what you would consider engineering in a long time, and so don't allow yourself to get pigeonholed. Just use that to get that next step towards where you want to get to, and always kind of have in your mind that you want to keep getting better every day. And I promise you that you'll continue down the path towards wherever you want to get to. And the second thing I would say is, if you're really interested in the gaming industry, there are lots of ways to participate in it, like we've talked about: marketing, sales, finance, business, strategy, actually being a competitive gamer. But what Bryn said is super duper important, which is, if you are actually a gamer, it gives you a leg up, frankly, because it gives you a level of credibility that others don't have. And I think that level of credibility, combined with whatever interpersonal skills that you bring to the table because of what you were able to do, whether it's competitiveness, whether it's your technical skills because you built your own computers to go to a LANFest, whether it's your creative skills because you're a campaign master on D&D, whatever it is, right? Bring your full self to that discussion, and you'd probably be surprised at how much of those skills are transferable to the way you want to go.
I'm going to double click on something that you said really quickly, because I think this may be shocking for people. There are a lot of people that work in the gaming industry that don't play games. Like, there is a need for every skill set. Somebody's got to do the books, right? And because the gaming industry has grown so fast, so quickly, the need for people who authentically can speak to this audience because they're part of this audience and have a completely unrelated skill set is totally there, right? I'd actually say probably, and I'm not the best person to speak to this, I'll only speak to it from my personal experience, probably one of the hardest places to get a gaming job is the gaming industry, like developers directly, because that is where like 100% of the people that work there probably are gamers. But as gaming continues to grow and it becomes an opportunity for a lot more traditional businesses, they're going to need people who are gamers that can do the business functions, that can do some of the other pieces that, quite honestly, people in the professional space right now, not all of them are gamers. So there is a huge opportunity to make gaming a compelling part of your resume.
I wouldn't even say it's not even all, it's not even most, it's like less than half. Easy, right? The speed at which the market's grown has definitely outpaced the speed at which people from this community enter it. Companies are paying more attention now. So like Bryn said,
Absolutely.
come on, we absolutely welcome you. And if you're not a gamer, we welcome you too. And we welcome your point of view to try to help drive this business forward too.
Absolutely. This has been wonderful. Thank you both, Marcus Kennedy and Bryn Pilney. I appreciate you guys so much for coming on and spending an hour with us and telling us about yourselves, about your journey, about your opinions, about what you recommend for people in the gaming to get into the gaming industry. It's been wonderful. And I can't, LANFest thanks you so much for being here. Again, thank you for your time. And I know you're very busy people, and taking a moment out to inspire the people at this LAN is just fantastic. So I can't thank you enough for that.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
You betcha. And thank you for watching the Careers in Gaming panel. Thank you for helping us support UC Davis Children's Hospital and Seattle Children's Hospital this weekend. If you'd like to donate, please go to donate.lanfest.com or scroll down if you're watching on Twitch and hit that donate button. Thanks again to our partners, Intel and ViewSonic. Make sure you visit lanfest.com/events to see our upcoming events. Valorant Tournament on April 27th through 28th. LAN All Nights, the LAN Wars in person and online in Dallas, May 14th through 16th. And Infernal LAN Mayhem online, May 28th to 30th. Thank you so much for viewing, and we will talk to everybody soon. Thank you so much.